Regardless of what you think of the character, the Generations Windblade mold is a controversial one. Most of the fandom hates this thing, but a small group of it defends it to the very core. Where do I fit into all of this? Well, I've got the Slipstream version, so things may be a bit different, but I can still review this toy anyway. In short, this toy's bad. Really bad. No, seriously, I'd recommend to stay away from it. However, if I explain it more in detail, things get a little more complicated. The jet mode is clearly the weakest link here, although I should go over some of the positives first. The colours on this thing are utterly gorgeous. I have never seen a jet with colours done this well before, even on the first attempt at a Slipstream that was an exclusive to, I think it was the Collectors Club? Whatever. The turquoise and metallic purple make this thing look amazing. So amazing that it's honestly very easy to look over the figure's flaws. The VTOL fans are also pretty neat. I mean, sure, they are a better fit for Windblade, but honestly the jet mode just kind of works for Slipstream. I also like the use of transparent plastic here. It's just so awesome. But that's honestly it. The rest of the jet mode is a complete mess, literally. The underside's a joke and the figure barely holds together. Most of the tabs peg into the other bits with other tabs, and it all ends up being held together with this tail fin. Boring grey plastic aside, it's just not strong enough. I feel like the thing's gonna fall apart in my hands. The front of the legs are also really conspicuous, and they don't actually peg into the robot mode at all. They probably would have pegged in better if they hadn't left a giant hole in the back of the plane. Seriously, this is Transformer Design 101 right here. I don't care if the original version filled it up with a sword, this is a disaster. The jet mode also looks pretty bad from the front, so aerodynamics be damned. The flight path isn't helped by the fact that it's at a weird angle when you put it down. Those bits of landing gear aren't helping in the slightest. Furthermore, the nose cone does not want to stay pegged in at all. Finally, the null rays can't be seen under the giant wings, so I usually just leave them in their robot mode configuration. They're just way too small. All in all, this jet mode is one of the worst alternate modes I have ever seen, which baffles me because for some reason I actually like it. I can't explain why I like something this objectively bad, but either way it's still quite terrible. For a size comparison, the jet mode is honestly not too small for the size class. The wings probably help quite a bit though. Oh, I almost forgot, there's a Damashi port at the front of the plane, which is honestly a bit too far forward. I also feel like the rubber peg keeping it in place is gonna stretch and become useless one day. Oh my god, is that thing falling over? Looks like it's gonna fall over any minute. Ew. I'm gonna take that off before it just destroys the peg. The transformation's essentially a snooze fest. It's quite uninspired in the jet former way, sharing similar problems with the RC mold. The difference here is that Slipstream is not a shell former, instead taking the whole jet former thing where she's basically a robot with an alt mode on her back. Granted, the way she folds everything away does work quite well in comparison to other jets, such as any iteration of the Seekers and Universe Silverbolt. But at the end of the day, I just think there should have been more effort put into this. Slipstream's robot mode honestly doesn't look very Windblade, despite being a minor retool. The new paint probably helps, with an epic balance of a purple center and a turquoise ring around her. Honestly, this figure looks really good overall. The fake chest nose cone, although a cheating move, is really reminiscent of the animated version, which this figure is supposed to actually be because apparently Slipstream universe jumped or something. You can't have a limited Japanese comic or prose friction without having a universe jump. It's just the way things work. The Damashi port is also perfectly placed in this mode. It would have been better if it was based for the vehicle mode because that's where it would actually fly a lot more, but honestly it doesn't matter too much. This figure does have quite a few flaws however. The null rays are sadly on her forearms instead of her biceps, which seems a little off. The legs are also whoa! Sorry, as I was god damn it. Sorry, just give me a sec here, gotta fix this. The legs are, oh wow, that's fantastic. As I was saying, the legs are pretty bad, the heel spurs are way too small for this figure, and she's always falling over. The front of the legs aren't very good either, with tabs that don't really work. And the nose cone isn't very good, with no tabs to keep it locked in. It just kinda sits there, wobbling about. Finally, the head sculpt is both a pro and a con. It looks really good, and there's a neat effect here where the entire head is clear, but the eyes are painted in red transparent ink to create a really good light piping effect. Or at least it would be if they hadn't abandoned the idea and painted the eyes red anyway. One of the other fembots from the Takara line, Nightbird, did this perfectly, and everything here is set up. My only guess is that they ran out of budget and had to give her the same paint on the eyes as they did on the back of the plane, which is such a small detail that I honestly don't know why they bothered with that, instead of giving the eyes a proper paint job. For articulation, the head is on a really tight ball joint that only looks left and right. Because it's made out of transparent plastic, I usually leave it so as not to damage it. The head does look up though, which honestly looks kind of dumb. The wings have several points of articulation, allowing for lots of adjustments to how you pose them. The shoulders are on ball joints with articulated shoulder pads, and below them she has a bicep swivel and a 90-degree elbow bend, and a wrist swivel that I rarely even notice. She also has a waist swivel, ball jointed hips, thigh swivels, and knee bends that are just over 90 degrees. Considering how hollow the legs are, I was honestly expecting more motion. For a size comparison, she's an appropriate height, and her lanky proportions really work with the character. I can't really see it working for Windblade as much though, as she's slim, but not anorexic like Slipstream. This figure's a weird one. A lot of people hate this mold. In fact, I'd say most people hate it. I understand where they're coming from. The excellent paint job doesn't really do very well in hiding the below average robot mode and the abysmal jet mode. The figure receives 2 stars, and there's honestly not another rating I can give it. The thing is though, I thoroughly enjoy this figure and don't regret buying her in the slightest. I know this figure is bad, but I like it. Am I going mad? Or even Orwell? Am I exercising doublethink? What am I to do? Crumbs, tell me! What's happening? Ah! Next time I'll review another Takara toy, Legends Nightbird Shadow. Of course the whole shadow part is kind of pointless, but whatever.